How would you describe what someone's frequency means? And why does having the right frequency in your life determine whether you will manifest what you want or what you won't create?
So your frequency basically is consisting of the sum total of you, okay? So when I talk about frequency, I'm talking about your overall identity, essentially. So that is the sum total of your beliefs about yourself and the world, your dominant emotional state, and then your thoughts. All of that comprises your energetic frequency. And when we think about it, everything in this universe is energy, okay? This table is energy, that camera is energy, all of it is energy. But we are energetic beings as well at our core. So we have these physical bodies, we also have energetic bodies, we also have thoughts existing on the mental field, we also have emotions. All of those things have an energetic frequency. So the primary kind of shareholders of your frequency is your emotions, your thoughts, your beliefs.
How does someone then elevate their frequency to a level where they can manifest what they want?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that feel like they have a desire, they want to create something, but they have a roadblock over and over again, and they feel stuck or trapped. And they feel like no matter what I do, I'm not creating what I want. So how does someone raise their frequency to start attracting abundance?
When people think about manifestation, they don't realize the power that their energy actually has. And they're looking at physical reality, and they're putting most of their focus actually on what they want to change in their life, right? So let's say someone wants to manifest abundance. That person more than likely is focusing on the circumstances of lack in their life because they're so frustrated with the lack that they're constantly thinking about, I don't have enough money, I don't want to have this unexpected bill, etc., etc. And so the biggest hurdle, I think, for people when they're trying to shift their energy and shift their frequency is they're too focused on their circumstances and their reality that they don't prefer. Because when you focus on something, essentially, you are using that basically as feedback to your system. And for example, if you have circumstances of lack and limitation, you might start believing that that's all that's possible for you, right? So you're allowing your circumstances to continue to define your beliefs about yourself, about your money, about the world. That dictates your thoughts, that dictates your identity, and your emotional state towards money stays the same because you're constantly looking and feeling, oh, I feel lack, I feel limited, right? So the biggest and first step I would say for people if they want to shift their frequency is they have to stop taking their circumstances as definitive. That is like the number one biggest thing that I teach that really starts shifting things for people. They've got to start realizing that they are so much bigger than the circumstances. They are so much bigger. And physical reality, when we think about manifestation, like if you're in a circumstance of lack, that is kind of like the final 1% of manifestation. It's not the full process. There's an entire unseen process that goes on before we hit the final 1% of the circumstance of lack. And that unseen process starts within you in your energetic frequency. So you want to start defining your identity, your beliefs, your attitude, your emotions, your thoughts about money, for example, if that's what you're trying to shift, from within.
How do they start shifting that internally?
There's so many steps, but the first one is to, first of all, realize that the past does not have to be the future. It does not define them unless they say it does. Okay. So one of the biggest things, and we're going to go quite out there for a minute, but one of the biggest things that starts to reframe this for people is when people realize that they are very powerful creative beings and they realize they're already manifesting constantly. We manifest like we breathe air. We can't help it. God created man in his image. Okay. So we are inherently creative beings. We have an essence. We have like a fractal of that divine essence of God within us, each and every one of us. And I think a lot of people, the reason they aren't able to change is because they don't believe that they have this power. They don't believe that they have so much power over their circumstances. And so what ends up happening is they end up treating their circumstances as totally definitive rather than them realizing, oh, hey, I'm the one who's creating this situation. I'm the one who's energetically corresponding with the reality of lack. And so when people want to manifest, I think the first thing they have to get into their head is the order of creation in reality.
What is the order of creation when manifesting a new reality for yourself?
You can look at this from a few different perspectives, but everything that exists physically in the physical world has come from the non-physical, okay? So everything physically that exists is just particles vibrating at different frequencies, right? Before they exist as particles, they exist as waves of potential in the quantum field. So there's infinite potentials in this unseen field that is beyond our senses. What we call physical reality is less than 1% of what exists in the entire universe, right? And so us as well as human beings, we exist on the physical plane, but we also exist on the mental plane, the plane of thoughts, which is beyond the physical. And we also exist on the spiritual plane where infinite possibilities exist because we are one with the Creator. And the reason I think this is so important for beginning to shift your frequency is you've got to open up your mind and realize that you are so much bigger than physical reality. Because we've been gifted mental faculties like imagination, intellect, intuition, reasoning, will, we have the power to direct our creative consciousness at certain possibilities in the quantum field and then bring those into form. There's an experiment in quantum mechanics, it's called the double slit experiment, which essentially shows that electrons exist as waves of potential, so many possible states in the quantum field, until they are observed by an external observer. And then they start behaving as particles. Okay, so what that shows us is our consciousness and what we call the material world is intrinsically linked.
Mm-hmm.
And we are influencing everything around us constantly through our focus, through our awareness, and through our perspective, right? And so the first thing you've got to notice, okay, I am playing an integral role here. I am not just this physical body. I always say to people, you did not just fall out of a coconut tree. You are consciousness embodied in physical form. You are consciousness being directed into the mental field at your neurological tissue that's created mind. So you're existing in the mental field. And you're also consciousness existing in a physical body. And so the way you start rising above and shifting your frequency is you start to harness and realize the power of your energy and the power of your thoughts, your perspective, what you focus on, and your beliefs. So you want to start really defining that stuff for yourself from the energy of, as soon as I change my beliefs, as soon as I change my perspective, as soon as I change my attitude, as soon as I change my identity, everything around me will start to change because that is the way that it works.
So first, even if we've never experienced success or the feeling of abundance or the feeling of I'm putting in an intentional thought out in the world of wanting to create something and it comes to me.
Yeah.
Although we're manifesting all the time, no matter what, we're constantly manifesting what we're creating in our life. But if it feels like what we really desire, we're not able to manifest. First, it's shifting the belief that it's possible. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
Because if you never believed it's possible, it's going to be hard to create it.
Exactly.
And is that the order of creation?
So the order of creation, if we break it down simply, is be, do, have. I know you had Myron Golden on a little while ago and he spoke about this.
Yep.
So in Genesis, it says, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion. It says it right there in Genesis. So essentially, you have to be the version of you who's there already before you can take the actions, before you can have the material results. That is the order. It's not have, do, be. It's be, do, have. So even if you've not ever experienced something in your physical reality, manifestation is not about experiencing something physically or getting something in the physical world. When you look at it on a deeper layer, manifestation is about getting something internally so that you can see it reflected externally to you. Because what you're perceiving is just a mirror reflection of your state, of your energy. That is all.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you're perceiving in the physical world what you're experiencing in the internal world.
Exactly.
How does someone know what frequency they're actually operating at right now in life?
By looking at their life, by looking at their results. So you can very quickly tell what your beliefs are, what your identity, self-concept is, by looking at the results that you have in your life. You look at your finances, your relationships, your career, what you feel you're worthy of, all of these things. That can tell you really quickly where you're operating at.
So look at your life, look at your relationship, look at your bank account, look at everything around, look at your health, look at your body and say, okay, is my life have the results that I desire, or am I kind of mirroring the thoughts, beliefs, and emotions inside of me physically around me?
Yeah.
Okay, so first do an assessment, your frequency, your energetic frequency, it sounds like, and assess where you're at in your life.
Yeah.
And, you know, at one point in my life, I was sleeping on my sister's couch for a year and a half. I had no money. I was broke, living off 3 credit cards. And it probably was a reflection of kind of where I was at in my life internally. And once I started to shift the belief around myself of what I'm capable of, I started to see external results as well, is what I'm hearing you say. Is first take a look at your life and see where that is. Then look at the order of creation, which is instead of wanting to have something and feeling a certain way once you have it, feel that way first. Be that way first. Be the love you want to be positivity, be joy,
Yep.
be fun, be playful. And you'll start to create more of that around you as well.
Absolutely. And it's not easy to do.
Why is it hard for people to be before they have?
Because we're conditioned to focus on the external, to define our value, our identity from what we see around us. We've forgotten that we are inherently creative beings. And we're not taught how to use the power of our mind, our imagination, belief, intention, none of that. We don't even know about our intuition. We don't know about any of that. All we know is what we see. So we base everything off what we see with our eyes, not realizing that that's just a tiny fractal of what exists, and not realizing that we are so much bigger than what we see. And so it's a kind of a conditioning thing. It's a lack of awareness, really. We don't have the awareness to realize that we can be so much more than what we've been experiencing.
What's the one thing that you see people do that keeps them stuck, even when they're consuming all the right content, going to the right courses and events that are teaching them something about creating what they want? They have the coach, they're investing in the books, they're watching your content, but they're still stuck. What is blocking them from creating that breakthrough?
Fundamentally, people get stuck when they know they don't want to be who they've been, but they're not ready to be who they're supposed to be yet, right? So if you almost think of it like every outcome that you desire in physical reality, there is a version of you that corresponds with that version of reality. And your ticket to getting to that version of reality, that level in this game of life, is becoming that version of you now. That's the only way in. That is the only way. There's no other way in. You have to become that version of you first. Then you can start living within that level in that game of life, right? And so a lot of people get stuck because they're learning, they're getting all the information, they're learning all the stuff, but they're not embodying it. They're not actually living it, okay? So they could know, okay, I need to set these boundaries. I need to have new standards. I need to cut all of this stuff out. I need to cut these people out. I need to show up more, courageously, or I need to show up more authentically, or whatever it is. But they just can't do it. And so then a person will enter what I call the in-between phase, which is a really painful phase. If you've ever been in the in-between phase, it's not nice. That's where you're stuck because you're not who you were and you're not that new version of you yet. So you're just kind of floating in the middle. And the only way that you can get unstuck is to figure out, why are you resisting becoming that version of you? Like, what is it within you that fears that or thinks you're not worthy of that? Because nothing you do is random. Every behavior that you have is driven by a belief or a part of you or a past trauma or something like that. And so oftentimes we're blocked from stepping into that next level version of us, and therefore that next level reality, because there's parts of us that are just resisting that are not ready to go for it.
Well, it's almost like you have to kill off the person you once were in order to become the version of you that can attract everything you want. It's maybe not kill off, maybe it's a bad thing, but it's like you need to let go of something, whether it's like killing off or letting something die that was once inside of you to start living in a certain way that attracts the things you want.
Yeah.
And it's stepping into the alignment of what you want and the way of being that's necessary, that's required to attract what you want in the physical world. Right?
Yeah. So when we see people growing a lot and they have a lot of success in the world and they keep reaching new levels, you can look at that person and just know what they're doing is they're changing into different versions of themselves constantly. That is a person who's constantly evolving, which means constantly letting go of parts of the old self. That's the journey.
You can't bring that with you.
You can't bring that with you, no. So I always say for every next level that you go to, you're going to have to sacrifice a part, if not multiple parts of you. Because let's zoom it out for a second. Okay. We all came into these physical bodies. Our souls descended into these physical bodies. We opened our eyes. We started to get conditioned and programmed by the world around us. We started to have different experiences, different traumas, different things happen. And we start building this identity, okay? And oftentimes the identity that we are embodied within for most of our lives is not the vehicle. It's not the identity that corresponds with our dream life, okay? So we end up with these characteristics and traits that are not aligned with who we really are. They're not aligned with our true path and our true purpose. And then we want to get in alignment with our true path and our true purpose. And we're like, this is going to be great. We don't realize we have to kill off a whole lot of this old identity in order to actually resonate energetically with this purpose, with this dream life.
And where does the ego play into all this?
The ego, oh my goodness. The ego gets a lot of, the ego has a lot of negative connotations. To me, the ego is not negative. You almost want to think of it like this, right? The ego is just like the character that you're playing, right? It's your consciousness at your essence. You're not just this physical body. You're not just your mind. You know that because you can observe your mind, your thoughts. You can observe your body. So you're actually the observer, which is the pure consciousness within you, okay? And the ego essentially is the character that your consciousness is playing in this physical world. So it's like light filtering in through a stained glass window. I think I heard someone say that before, but that's such a good analogy. You're the light, but you're also the projection through the stained glass window, which is the ego, the character. And even if you want to think of it like a video game, you're the character in this video game, but you're also the player of the character. So the ego is kind of like your vehicle throughout this reality. It's not negative. It can be very limiting though, because if you're playing in an ego character that's not aligned with the life that you desire, then that is going to be standing in the way of you resonating with it vibrationally.
So how does someone harness the power of their ego to be in alignment for good rather than something that's hurting them?
Personally, I believe the most powerful first step for being able to manage your ego, you want to think of it like a wild horse, because it will control you if you're unconscious of it. You need space from it. You need space. That is the ultimate step one. When you don't have space from your ego, you think you are just the way that you are. You don't realize that you have the power to change your characteristics. And even if you look at, when you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes and your consciousness flows into your brain, you automatically start firing and wiring the same thoughts that you did the day before. Automatically, it happens on autopilot. You have these well-trodden neural pathways in your head that are they've been used for so long that the brain will just use them because it conserves the most energy to use them. It's the easiest route. So you'll think the same things about yourself, about your life, about everything. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to step into a new version of you, a new way of thinking about things, while you're still entrenched in the old one. It's like trying to jump across the Grand Canyon. It's really difficult. But if you can take your conscious awareness away from your old thought patterns and away from this old version of you, and you can enter stillness, present moment awareness, you can realize, I'm not just these thoughts. I'm not just this version of me. And then from there, you have the power to direct your awareness down a new pathway, one that corresponds with a new version of you, a new way of looking at the world.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy this and you want more inspirational content, make sure to click the subscribe button below and click right here to watch what's coming next.